Did you know that in the United States, approximately 72% of people watch anime? I know it might not seem like a big deal nowadays, with anime becoming more popular and all after the pandemic, but somewhere in an alternate universe, anime probably wouldn't have caught on. Thankfully, in a weird turn of events, anime caught on in the US, thanks to an unlikely group of people.
Soy pura mexicana, nacida en esta tierra, en este hermoso suelo, que linda es mi nación.
That's right, in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, I wanted to shine some light into our community and tell people how we were able to help anime spread in North America before it became so popular. It's the early 60s, the civil rights movement was at its peak, tensions were rising in Vietnam, and John F. Kennedy advises the American people of possible nuclear attacks, but everything is going to be okay because the first Super Bowl happened. Oh, and I guess anime arrives in America and oh, it flopped. Yeah, anime wasn't really popular during this time due to other shows that were appealing to kids. Also, if you think about it, I don't think Americans wanted Japanese products due to what happened 20 years prior. And also, there were too many things happening around this time, so I want to say that it's at least safe to assume that American-made entertainment and products were a top priority. But because of this, a lot of Japanese shows instead went to Latin America, where they found better success, since buying the rights for anime was cheaper compared to American-made cartoons, leading to anime spreading throughout Central and South America, and creating a strong foundation in the West. And I mean, think about it, it was cheaper compared to American shows, and unlike the US, we didn't censor anime. Simply because, let's be honest here,
I'm very sorry and I apologize for the inconvenience of me not giving a fuck what you think. Get the fuck out of here.
but we don't give a fuck. That's right, while Americans had to deal with some questionable censorship, we got the real deal. People were also willing to put more effort into dubbing because they themselves enjoyed the medium, and most importantly, anime had a similar storytelling style to that of telenovelas, and if you've ever watched a telenovela before, you'll know how crazy they'll get. But for now, let's skip ahead a little to the late 1900s. God, that sounds awful. But by this point, anime has somewhat of a footing in the US. Not much, because it was still considered an underground type of media, but it is enough to help grow what's to come. And this was due to anime just being more accessible because of these old things called VHS tapes and DVDs. Now, here's where we come in. Unfortunately, if you're a young child living in what's considered a third world country, those things were a little harder to come by. And there really isn't much for you to do aside from school, playing outside, watch some TV, which is the highlight of a lot of kids' days because you get to escape reality for a bit. At least that was my reality back in the early 2000s. But
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great!
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good,
It
though.
could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
from my perspective as a kid born and partially raised in Latin America before I had to move to the US, I can safely tell you that anime was a major part of a lot of people's life over there, as it was for me. We got a lot of products that were Japanese and shows that air there that you wouldn't normally see in the States, mostly because people would burn CDs and sell them in the market later. But anime wasn't limited by CDs, we actually had TV stations airing anime, and unlike America during this time, we could watch anime during the daytime, and it was dubbed in Spanish.
Viejo sabroso.
Tienes razón, mi gay amigo.
I remember being a young kid, wearing my Rurouni Kenshin button-up shirt and sitting in my abuela's house watching the Rayman and Crayon Shin-chan, which, looking back on it, it was probably a little too horny for kids. But then again, we didn't care, which is why to this day I can still remember being traumatized by Gantz. Yeah, that first episode traumatized me. Thankfully, not every show was like that. Shows such as Saint Seiya, Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, Captain Tsubasa, all of these shows were great and helped anime grow during this time. But I must address the elephant in the room. If there is one show that everyone who is under 35 and is Latino knows, it's Dragon Ball. And okay, I'm gonna say something a lot of people will not agree with me on. Dragon Ball is peak. Yeah, I know, I get it, but hear me out. In the early 2000s, anime had a pretty good base in Latin America, and Dragon Ball is just that show. Everyone knows about it. Your grandparents know about it. They probably even have a shrine in honor of Saint Goku. The taqueria around the corner has a mural dedicated to him. Me and my best friend would play fight pretending to be Dragon Ball characters, and we would even do the fusion dance. It was this show that helped anime spread throughout Central and South America, and due to this fascination over the show, it even got a second chance in the US. To give you an even bigger perspective on how great Dragon Ball is, back in 2018, the second to last episode for Dragon Ball Super was screened publicly in Ciudad Juarez to 10,000 fans. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. Ciudad Juarez, for anyone that doesn't know, is Mexico's most dangerous city, if not one of the most dangerous cities in the world. And yet, anime has managed to achieve something that many people are incapable of. They brought the community together. Even if it was just for one night, it brought people together to watch the penultimate episode of Dragon Ball Super. And say what you will about Dragon Ball, but there are many other shows now that have managed to bring people together, just the same way it did for the people in Ciudad Juarez. But this wouldn't happen until 2018, and again, the rise of Dragon Ball mostly made anime popular in Central and South America. However, something would change by the late 2000s and early 2010s. Okay, to paint you a picture, I was but a little kid living in the US in the late 2000s, and of course, everything was cool to me. You guys had GameStop, Chuck E. Cheese, Blockbuster, which did help a lot of people find their first anime, and to me, it was just awesome seeing all these different things that were more accessible to Americans. But aside from Blockbuster, it was hard to watch anime unless you stayed up late at night for Adult Swim to show up. And even then, you had to watch what was on it. Which was good, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you kinda wanted to watch something else. And here we enter my favorite era, which a lot of people had to struggle with. The Spanish sub Español. And well, it was something. A lot of people during this time were finding out about anime, and I call this era the first renaissance of anime. If you were a kid during this time and you would go on YouTube, you could find a lot of different videos. Some funny, some bad, and some weird ones. YouTube was the Wild West, and therefore you could find a lot of hidden gems. Anime being one of them. I would know, because I would look up Naruto episodes. Hell, I still remember watching the third Naruto movie in its entirety. Well, not in its entirety, because it was split into parts. And sometimes it was difficult to find those parts. So you would sometimes just miss like 3 minutes of information or more. It wasn't as bad as it sounds though, I promise. But this type of spreading of media was good for anime. Obviously, it sucked for some people, because you had to read the subtitles, and of course you had to deal with not being able to find these certain parts, and I guess if you didn't know Spanish, it was a bit more difficult.
The sound in the trunco.
Oh, sí, tenía alguien en el maletero.
But hey, think about it. Again, you're a young kid during this time, and at most you would go to Blockbuster once a week, and that's even if your parents wanted to go. So Sub Espanol Part 7 out of 30 was your best bet sometimes. We put people onto anime this way, and at the very least gave them a gateway of something they would find. And I'd like to think that because of our love for the medium and our willingness to spread and share something we hold dear to us, anime spread to the rest of North America. Which is why, after this point, anime just continued to grow and spread. It was still a bit difficult to show to other people, because anime was considered weird at this time. So we were closeted, but thankfully, unfortunately, you know what, the pandemic helped change that. Anime grew in popularity, and we were able to freely talk about it, without any judgment of it. Well, mostly.
It's just this anime called The Time I, as a 40-year-old, fell in love with a 12-year-old. Pretty good. Oh, it's not like that. Like he's a 40-year-old, but he traveled back in time. So now he's back in his 12-year-old body.
But just like with the showing of Dragon Ball in Ciudad Juarez, anime has helped people come together to talk about things they like about it, help raise the community of people who enjoy the medium that's bigger than ever, with cosplayers, animators, artists, fashion designers, bodybuilders, musicians. Anyone that's into it has gained some inspiration to create things that they saw from a show that they like. Anime is for everyone, and I get it that maybe it would have grown by itself even if Latinos didn't give that extra push back when it first arrived in the West, but I'm glad we did. Okay, so this is the end of the video. Obviously, like I said before, I think anime would have grown without the help of Latinos. I just think it would have taken a lot longer. Also, I want to know what people's first anime was, honestly, or I don't know, what show made you think, holy shit, this is actually pretty cool. Just, I'm interested in all of that. But thank you for watching me. God, this is so cringe. I'll see you in the next video.